Hello everyone and welcome to this new episode of the Sovereign University. We are here in El Salvador for Cuba Plus and today I have the chance to be with Edgar. Edgar, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Roxy. It's an honor to be here.
You are the creator, founder and CEO of K1. That is, for the audience that wouldn't know, a manufacturer of Lightning ATM here in El Salvador. Maybe the easiest thing would be to explain a bit who you are, where you're from, and how did we manage to get at this point?
Yeah, definitely. My pleasure. Well, my name is Edgar Borja. I'm Salvadoran. I've been working in technology, my whole life. I began developing software when I was 12 or 13 years old. Went to college for software engineering, and then I also had the opportunity to study a couple of years in California to study electronics. So it gave me a more of a background in hardware as well as in software. That way, when I came back, I began working first in software strictly, but then a few opportunities came up. Some people were thinking about importing devices that I thought could be manufactured here. And we started building from that, and then when the Bitcoin law came about, we decided to create an easy-to-use Bitcoin ATM that works with small amounts. Definitely had to be Lightning. We work strictly on Lightning because when you're doing small amounts, it's the only way that makes sense. And now we're here. It's been a wild ride. Bitcoin has taken us all over the world. We're across the Atlantic, we're across the Pacific, and we have our devices now in 11 countries.
Yeah, actually, I'm the one running it in France, and we bought one for Switzerland. We've met last year during an hackathon we did in Ataco, a small city up north of El Salvador. And this product, and the reason we're here today is because Lightning ATMs are the easiest entry doors to mass adoption on a bottom-up approach. I'm pretty sure, I don't know, why did you decide to create an ATM, for example? What was the idea behind?
Well, one of the reasons definitely was when the law came, me and my team, we wanted to try Bitcoin. I had been aware of Bitcoin since the very beginning. Obviously, every day I regret not getting into it earlier, but there's a time for everything. And our first experience was actually going to El Zonte, the famous Bitcoin beach, to try it. So we got there, tried to buy some Bitcoin. It took half an hour for it to arrive, and with heavy fees. So we decided, there's no way our people who live on a few dollars per day will be able to be on board with Bitcoin if this is the on-ramp for them. So that's a great on-ramp for some countries, even here in El Salvador, for some people who would do $100 per day transaction, but that's not the gross population. So we decided to create a simple solution, like as simple as possible, that would allow people to buy Bitcoin from 5 cents. And that is why we decided to create this product. It took a few years, but now even this is our second generation product that not only can you buy with coins, but also with bills.
We're going to do a tutorial in 5 minutes probably. What I'm wondering now is how hard is it or was it to create the manufacturing plant here in El Salvador? You were saying that you had to import all the pieces. Did you find some struggle either in the import, in the technical knowledge to actually build it? Just curious on the States.
Yeah, the manufacturing is always surprising. In the first Adopting Bitcoin conference, we had our very first prototype. It didn't look like this. It was actually just a cash box from Office Depot. And if you've seen those, it was just a little black metal box that we had made some 3D printed components for it, and it worked. It actually worked, but it looked really rough around the edges. But just Bitcoin brings so many people together. We met a friend at that conference, and he was friends with the owner of the biggest metal manufacturing facility in El Salvador. They usually make closets, probably displays for supermarkets, shelves, and stuff like that. But he was looking for new opportunities for his business to diversify into, smart devices, into the future. So they've been really supportive, and we are manufacturing these boxes here in El Salvador, custom made with CNC laser cutters that, it's top of the line. And you wouldn't believe that it's all made in El Salvador. Obviously, some of the electronics, the touch screen is imported, the bill acceptor is imported, but within our plans, it is also to build more of the electronics locally. We are already building some of the electronics locally, but we want to do more in the future as we grow.
It's such an awesome thing that it's actually made for the Salvadorian, by the Salvadorian. It's really local and really give the idea that Bitcoin does create business at the end of the day. It is a new industry popping up, and you can be an exchange educator, but you can also just create a factory. How many people are working in K1 or in the plant in general?
Yeah, right now we have 2 people working full time and then 4 more people working part time. We also, like for the design of the UX and for the software, also sometimes we outsource to some people. But we, based on current trends, we are already training a group of students that will in the near future be working with us full time, we hope, because we continue to expand.
Are you talking about Cuba Plus, or is it even another thing?
For software development, definitely Cuba Plus. As you know, we ran a little challenge for the Cuba Plus students. That was a challenge for them, a way to encourage them, but also a way for us to determine who are more interested into hardware as well, because this is a hardware product. Then on the other side, for the electronics manufacturing, soldering, and stuff like that, we also have a couple of courses that we've been working with here in the La Libertad department, where some high school students have been taking robotics courses and electronic soldering that we also continue to monitor for the other side of the business. So Cuba Plus, definitely, for software. We cannot match that level of training. And then for hardware, we're also looking at another team of students.
You've been in El Salvador your whole life, right?
Basically, yeah.
I'm super curious, and I think the audience are too. How did you see the country, maybe or not, get transformed since the Bitcoin law? I guess more Bukele to power, and like, how do you see the growth and the trend as of right now?
Yeah, I mean, the Bitcoin law has been significant for us. We had already been working in hardware before that. We had a big ATM. It's on one of our social media pages, but that was a product designed for banks and maybe like financial co-ops, people who would do loans in fiat. And it was really hard to sell to people because Latinos and Salvadorans are very, I don't know, we are very distrustful of each other just because of the environment we grew up in. So just, for the big banks trusting a new upstart company that's trying to create technology in El Salvador, what is that? You should be probably doing something else. So it was hard. When the Bitcoin law came, one of the big changes from our point of view was just this influx of tech-oriented people, coming that, would you have ever come to El Salvador if it wasn't the case?
And I came 4 times already. Like since the law passed, I came back 4 times, and now I'm like literally just trying to help everything I can here.
Exactly. So there's now people coming to El Salvador who have this deep experience. I mean, there's a Cuba Plus class going on right now with instructors from all over the world, basically. So it just brought this knowledge and this desire for innovation and risk that when we presented this to Bitcoiners, the Bitcoiners would say, this is great, I want it. I'll take it to France, I'll take it to New Zealand, I'll take it to the States. Whereas the traditional companies would say, you're a newcomer? No, thank you.
How is it? How is the K1 expansion here in El Salvador? Did you manage to put it in some strategical place? I heard that you were working with the banks to actually put one inside banks. How is it on the local ground? Do they accept it?
So yes, especially in the Bitcoin environment that is now developing. Now El Salvador has its own Bitcoin environments. So we are in La Casa del Bitcoin, for example. We are in the offices of My First Bitcoin. We are in a couple of restaurants that are Bitcoin themed now because there's so many Bitcoiners coming around. So yeah, we're starting to grow locally, and we continue to build more projects to be even in remote communities like La Pirraya, which is an island off the coast. Nobody would go there before, but now it's a Bitcoiner destination.
Quentin is taking care of the project.
Exactly. So we are reaching more places all the time.
how does it work?
Okay, so it's really easy to use. We are proud to say, so far nobody has proven us wrong, it's the easiest way to buy Bitcoin anywhere in the world. And
I agree, like it is mind-blowing. Go ahead, show them, because showing don't tell.
And you can buy Bitcoin from 5 cents, or if you're in Europe, you get a 20-cent coin. In El Salvador, we use US dollars, so from 5 cents, and all you need is a Lightning invoice. So I'm going to create a Lightning invoice. You tap on Start, put in the coin, it'll recognize it, continue, scan your invoice, and it's going to give me 157 sats. That's it. Then you can play an advertisement, which is more revenue for the business or for the person who set it up, but that's as easy as that.
If we put that in every single hostel of the world, if we put that in restaurant, if you put that anywhere, and I'm talking about the ATM in general, sorry, not for necessarily K1, but if we're putting Lightning ATM as simple as that with basic hardware that can be manufactured anywhere in the world, we can truly have a non-KYC and ramp at a low cost deployed locally. K1 is a great solution, of course, but just the concept of that thing is so powerful. It's truly mind-blowing to think we got that. You also have the bills, I saw. I don't have the bills in my version.
Exactly. We actually hadn't developed that when you bought yours, because we continue to develop new versions. But then it's the same thing, just put in $1. It could be a 5, a 10, or a 20. It'll recognize it, and it's the same process. So I'm going to use a different wallet this time. I'm going to use Wallet of Satoshi, a very popular one here. Again, I'm just going to create a Lightning invoice. So I receive Lightning. Continue. Scan it.
That's it, $1. There is no limit because it's non-KYC, it's non-regulated, you just get one and well, you do whatever you want. So there's no limit, it's perfect. I do have a couple of tech questions, and I know my audience will have because we're all quite technical, or even if you're not, you can study more in the university if needed. The first question everyone will have is like, why do we need to create an invoice and not do LN withdraw to actually get the money instead of asking for it?
Definitely, and that's a very valid question. It would be easier for the tablet or the screen here, which is a tablet computer, to show an invoice that you can scan. There's a good reason for it, and it's that in El Salvador, at least for now, the most popular wallets do not support LNURL withdrawal. So wallets like the national wallet Chivo works very well peer-to-peer, but it's not Bolt 12 ready yet, as well as some of the other wallets. So we decided to create the base minimum denominator. A Lightning invoice works so far with every Lightning wallet that we've tried.
So yeah, it's really a question of compatibility with all the wallets. And you're right that Moon Wallet doesn't do it. Like the Salvadorian are not using the right wallet in my opinion, so they cannot use LNURL withdraw. The second question I would have is what's the hardware inside? So you have like just the screen, you have the camera, that's the most expensive part probably. Then you have what, ESP32, Raspberry Pi Zero, what do you use?
So the screen, as you said, is a tablet.
Can we open it?
Yes, of course.
Actually, I want to do a transaction with the camera zoomed in. I have $10.
This one takes 1 cent 5, so it can be configured differently. Like we can configure the coin acceptor.
Yeah, euro and a Swiss franc or whatever.
This bill acceptor is configured for 1s and 5s.
1s and 5, but we could configure it for others, right?
It can also be 1s, 5s, 10s, and 20s if it's dollars.
All right, I have 10 and 20. Damn, I cannot do it. Do you have another coin?
Sure, go ahead.
All right. Also, you were mentioning having like a video popping up at the end, like an advertising.
Yes.
Actually, let's keep that for after. So I just put that here. 25 cents. I just create any invoice, or do I need to put the right amount?
If your wallet supports an open invoice, this will read it and send the right amount, or you can set the amount that's listed there, so 785 sats.
No, I need to do that. Receive, and that's the one you're reading. Error in QR code, lightning address.
It's not an invalid Lightning invoice. So if you create a Lightning invoice, that was a Lightning URL address, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's exactly why. And so that should work. If you can scan. I hate cameras and QR code. I believe NFC are the future. All right. Sorry, there's so much to talk. We wanted to open it. So let's open it, and then I will keep my 2 other questions for after. So, what do we have?
Okay, so on the inside, in this unit, we have a tablet that we've modified actually to be able to connect to hardware devices. So we take some components out of the tablet. We have developed our own electronics that we put back inside, and that expands the tablet's capabilities. But a tablet itself is a touch screen with a camera and internet connection. So a lot of the components we need are already inside that. Then besides that, we have this 3D printed box. So we also use 3D printing to encase our custom electronics. And then besides that, we have the bill acceptor right here. It's the bill acceptor is not developed locally. This is a component we still need to import for now. And then I'm going to replace this actually. This is the cartridge where you would empty all the bills you've taken. And then we also have, I don't know, maybe I need to remove this. So here we have a programmable coin acceptor that can be set for almost any currency in the world.
So it's kind of low tech at the end of the day. Like there's nothing too complicated.
No, it's not overly complicated. In our electronics, I mean, we have tried to be, it's more creative than complicated. Because just the fact that we're using a tablet, it's part of that creativity. So do we get an LCD screen or I don't know, an e-ink display? Or do we get a Raspberry Pi because we need an internet connection? No, I mean, a tablet has everything. Then you just need to add more hardware capabilities, basically GPIO. So we do that in our own way, and that's where the creative part comes. So it's just trying to be resourceful.
And then once it's running, if we want to add like NFC, we could just have like an NFC tag here, connect the things, and then the person could just have like his NFC card and just tap it and receive the money directly within, to even like not have the friction of the QR code and the phone.
Yeah, definitely. We are already compatible with Tianqi NFC cards, which are Bitcoin Vault, basically NFC cards built here in El Salvador. And we are compatible by reading the QR because it also contains a Lightning address that's already there. But we had a device that we upgraded to an NFC. It was a special request version that we did for a hackathon actually. And that one had an NFC reader, so you could have keychains and rings and cards.
Yeah, with both rings.
Exactly.
That's so cool. Okay, what about the software? So we don't use LNbits. What do you use as software? How do you set up that? What are the requirements to get it running?
So our tablet is obviously running Android, and we have a Kotlin app doing the front end. Then on the back end, we have a server that connects to different Bitcoin providers. So right now, Bitcoin service providers, right now we can connect either to Bitcoin Beach, now Blink. So the operator of the machine will need to open an account with Blink. Or the other option is OpenNode. Those two are the backends that we can connect to. So the owner of the machine will need to have some balance, some Bitcoin balance, because that's where the sats come from. So what the machine does, it reads the QR, lets the server know, hey, you know, I just got a couple of coins, I got a bill, and somebody wants me to pay this Lightning address, and then the server does the work.
Yeah, so all the channel liquidity is done directly by by Bitcoin Beach Wallet, Blix, or OpenNode, right? So the user just need the liquidity to send the sats, and he should be the owner of this because he will need to open it to get the coins, right?
Exactly. In our business model, the operator of the machine should also own the sats. Because otherwise, you know, you can just come.
Yeah, we can siphon it and just like create. Yeah.
But then it's like if it's your soda machine, you say, well, I can take all the soda, but that's, you know, that's your job to put it back in. So in this case, like a soda machine, you have to load up the Bitcoin, and then in the end, you take the cash, and you can make a profit. We have some people who run it for profit, which is fine. You know, it's a valid business opportunity, and some people run it for education too. And then you can set the fee accordingly. The fee can be, you know, from 0%, 1%, 10%. Even if it's a 10% fee to buy Bitcoin with 5 cents, Who else is going to charge you half a cent to buy Bitcoin? It's still the cheapest way to do it.
Yeah, exactly, because Lightning enabled that. And if you don't want to be in the regulation, you put zero fee, so you're not a business. And if you actually do want to have a business, you can just put some fees to just compensate for the administration, to remove, put the coins and everything. It's cool. I like it. I like it so much. Our plan here with that, and maybe you know it if you watch a bit what we do, is that we want to use it in high schools here in El Salvador, because we believe that if we set up a K1 and a Lightning node within the high school, then the students will learn about Bitcoin and use it, and they will just go there and every day put their little money and receive sats, like you said, 5 cents, 10 cents, 20 cents. That's what they have. That's the reality of people having change from their lunch. And then with the Lightning wallet loaded, they can just go and spend around them to the local merchant, which are at the end of the day their friends and family.
They can go and spend it locally, but then they can also access. Like when I was little, I always wanted to buy my own domain name, you know?
Yeah.
But because I didn't have a credit card, because I was a minor, I couldn't access all of these services online. If you're able to digitalize your money, then you can use it all over the world.
Also, Shivo is 18 years old plus.
Yes.
This is non-KYC.
Exactly. For small transactions, it doesn't even, I mean, we always tell our customers, you know, check your local regulations because we know.
Of course, and we respect regulation too.
Yes. We know that different countries or even different states have different regulations. But in many places, if you're doing a transaction in coins, it's like a gumball machine. I mean, you don't need to get a permit from the central bank to set up a candy machine. This is what it does.
Not yet.
Not yet, yeah. The way things are going. But that's the niche this fills in most places.
Yeah, and you're right. And boarding $2 is very different from doing a non-KYC DCA solution in the States, you know. At that point, we need to adapt to people that don't have bank accounts. We need to adapt to people that do not trust. And there's no trust involved because by the moment you put the coin, like you almost immediately get the money in your own wallet. And worst scenario, it blocks, but like you know the owner because you're already like at the shop. So it's a really niche thing. Have you seen a lot of positive feedback from the Bitcoin office, the government maybe here, entrepreneur, banking system here? Like what are the higher institutional level in El Salvador think about K1?
Yeah, no, we've had great support from the Bitcoin office, just, you know, getting us to talk to the right people so that they are aware of our product. We have had support from even local Bitcoin businesses because we're a startup, you know.
Yeah.
It's we just a few employees right now, but other Bitcoin-related businesses have been helping us. I already mentioned Blink, businesses like Tianki, where we now have the Bolt cards integrated because they helped us do it. Other like even Dito banks, like the whole ecosystem is extremely healthy, and that's something that I think so far, as I've seen, is unique to the Bitcoin ecosystem. Like outside the Bitcoin ecosystem in El Salvador, it's always, you know, the bigger fish, it's the smaller fish. Here, everybody has been very supportive, so we're really thankful for that.
That's awesome. We were mentioning before that there were video popping up here. What's the idea behind that?
So that's another source of revenue. The idea is that this can be run as a successful business. It can be a great learning tool, but then you also want to give the opportunity to business owners, you know, maybe the owner of a restaurant who wants to run or get as much profit from it as possible. Mm-hmm. So they will be able to run advertisements, video and audio at the end of each transaction. If you're a Bitcoin company and you want to advertise your products, you could do it online where everybody's going to see it. Or you can do it at a place like this where people who are actually buying Bitcoin will see it. So it's, we believe we're also providing value to the ecosystem by doing that.
It does. I think it does make sense. It could be intrusive, but you can just disable it.
Exactly. So everything is up to the business owner. We manufacture the product, then the business owner decides which wallet they're going to connect it to. They decide what coins they're going to use, euro, dollar, a mix of them. They decide what the fee is going to be, what the maximum amount is going to be, because that can also have different rules in the regulations. So you say no more than €1 or no more than €10. And they also decide if they want to run ads, which ads they want to run. So we manufacture and we try to support the businesses and the owners to do whatever they want with it.
For El Salvador, the strategy that we've decided with DB and we want to put is that the students will be in charge of the K1. So they will learn how to manage money, how business works, how there's a cash flow, how there's liquidity. And so K1 is not only a tool to onboard people that don't care about Bitcoin into Bitcoin, it's also helping the more Bitcoiners of the schools to actually do start entrepreneurship and having that startup mindset, which is just so important.
I think so, because they will be, creating basically a small business that's going to be creating profit for their own projects. At the same time, you're also challenging their mind to think that in El Salvador you can create something like this, which is part of our goal. We can create technology. So if our school needs something that, I don't know, it's not an issue at schools in other countries, we don't have to wait for somebody else to fix our problem. We can develop a solution for the problem we have.
That's so true. And then if that works through the years, education will just keep getting stronger and stronger, and then people will start more businesses and more computers will flourish, and then at some point they will say, yeah, everything is possible, we can, there's a true change. Moving away a bit from K1, since you've been in El Salvador your whole life, I do want to have your feedback on like how it was growing up and the evolution that you saw with your local currency that has changed over the years, and a bit more. I don't know if you could like try to get us a feeling of how it was, because for Bitcoiners, we just come here, a bit of like a gringo coming to a new country because, well, you are welcoming to us and everything is done, so we can use the freedom that Bitcoin offer here. But we don't have that connection with your past, so could you please tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, definitely. I actually run a website.
Oh yeah?
Called, it's an old website, like GeoCities.
Yeah, ugly old one, but do the job.
It's called uncolon.com, so uncolon.com. No advertisements on the site.
No worries. Link on the description.
Yep. And it's actually pictures of bills and coins from El Salvador, because I've been a collector of currency. Mm-hmm. And I remember...
Maybe tell the people what is the colon, because that it's even to that level that maybe people don't know that it was the previous currency.
Exactly. Before we used US dollars, the dollars were implemented in the year 2000, if I'm not mistaken. We used to have our own national currency, the colon, which was printed by the National Bank. And I remember that time I would take one colon, to the store, and I would be rich, come back with candy and cookies and everything. Nowadays, when they fixed the rate, so one colon is 11 cents, I would go to the store right now and I cannot get a bag of chips for 11 cents. So we've suffered inflation. I remember when we switched to the US dollar, and I remember, I think we put all the quarters in the machine, but one of the stories that came out during the time of the switch to the dollar was people going to street sellers saying, hey, here's $1. This is a quarter, but the coin says $1. So they would go, look, this is $1. Give me $1 worth of mangoes or $1 worth of tomatoes. And people would scam other people because of the lack of education. When Bitcoin was implemented, it was the same risk, because our people are unfortunately not highly educated. The education system is changing. People are becoming more adventurous. We have Salvadorans creating technology now, but it's still not the norm. So we really wanted to create something that made it easy for everyone to learn. But going back a little bit to the history, I remember, during the Civil War, we had blackouts. I remember for the big La Ofensiva, as they call it, so the big attack that the guerrillas did on the government, we had to hide and everything. After that, after the peace accords, we were at a point of no war, but there was no development either, because so much of the infrastructure had been destroyed. El Salvador was actually manufacturing microchips for Texas Instruments before that, but the company left because of the war, as any wise company would have done. Few stayed, So there was a big gap for the people, for the youth at that time growing up. You know, you grow up, there's nothing to do. Many of them fled to the States. When they were deported, they had already learned how to run a gang, to extort other people in the area, so gangs became very prevalent to the point that in many areas, El Salvador was considered a failed state because it was not the government, not even the police or the military had power in certain areas. It was the gangs that had the power. When the new president came, President Bukele, he started to implement many changes. I think many of them are great. As with any political leader, you know, there's always a few things that you don't totally agree with, but you cannot deny the fact that the murder rate has plummeted. We have tourists coming. I can take my family to many places that I wouldn't like. The first day, I still remember the day he announced the first stage of the security plan. They had like I don't know, it was thousands of police and soldiers at the main square in the center of San Salvador. And you could say it's a media show. You can say whatever you want. The next day, I told my wife, you know what we're gonna do today? Because it was a holiday. We're gonna go to downtown San Salvador because there's not gonna be any thieves there, and we will get to know our history. We visited what used to be it's called the National Palace, which was the first seat of the government. I had never been there. I couldn't visit that place because of the safety. We went to the cathedral, to the first central bank, and they have a vault with all the old bills and coins, which was, you know, a treat for me, a coin collector. So I was able to take my family there. I won't say, you know, everything is fabulous, everything is great. There's always things to fix. I think we're never going to run out of things to fix. But the changes have been, things you can experience. And until you've been here, like if you didn't experience that, knowing that taking the bus at night was a big risk, knowing that you couldn't visit family members because they lived in areas where you simply weren't allowed to go and you couldn't see your family until you've lived that, and then you lived in the new El Salvador. You should, you know, make your research before making.
Yeah, thank you so much for the storytelling. It was too emotional, actually. And I think you're right. People need to come here to see it. And in Bitcoin, we say don't trust, verify. When the law passed, I was, I'm going to go and verify, you know. And adoption is slow, but the safety is what really made me come back here every time. And today, like working actively to make this experiment a great success. Because the amount of guns on the streets for those 3 years or 2 years that have been coming have been decreasing drastically. The charts don't lie. People are safer. People I talk to are happy with the change. So when all the gringos and the US and UK journalism complain or say whatever they say, it's like, yeah, but sometimes change is not an easy thing, but decisions need to be made, and the results are here.
You can't argue with the results.
The result, yeah. If the result wasn't here, we'd be like, it's another mess.
But you are here for the fourth time.
And yesterday I came back at like 2:30 to my hotel, walking 10 minutes downtown, like.
It didn't used to be like that.
I know. It's like, and I've traveled a lot in my life, so I know that you do feel safer, even to the point to like move some of my DB headquarters here and like actually get your business here. Before, why would you have a business in a place where there is no guarantee for the future, there is no safety, there is no logic on the long-term, low-time preference planning? No, it's like, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's a saying that you can argue with an argument, but you cannot argue with the results.
Yeah.
So I have seen small businesses pop up, you know, where people, like 1 block away from where I work, there used to be a little vet clinic.
Yeah.
And the owner was killed because he didn't want to pay the gang for extortion money. Now, in, I don't know, one block around that area, there's probably 5, 6, 7 new businesses, like a little grocery shop, a little restaurant, a little cafe, things that wouldn't have been possible. So the changes are positive.
Could you tell us a bit more on like, maybe I don't know if it's a great question, like how much the gang had power? We say it's a lot. They had the country.
I mean, one of the guys who works with me was sharing his story. Recently, we were talking about the changes, and he told me, I live in an apartment building. I mean, it's not a fancy apartment building. It's just a very basic apartment building. And he said, my building was one of the headquarters for one of the gangs. They would run everything, so they would walk around the street with their guns out. Like, they would respect me, he says, because I had grown in that area, and he works with the children in the area. But anybody else, they couldn't come. I mean, it was basically like you had to go through customs to go in, and they would check you and everything, and if they didn't like you or if they thought you were a spy for the rival gang, I mean, you'd better be gone. I mean, don't show up there. They would kill you, and there would be no recourse because even the police wouldn't want to go there. So just knowing that, if your neighbor is doing something, whatever, making big noise or making changes, or they took over part of your parking space or whatever, if they were with the gang, you were powerless. So just raising a family in that environment is terrible because you have no freedom, you have no safety, and now that has changed. So you cannot deny the results. Now he tells me, it's very different now. I can walk to my house, I can come in the morning, I can come in the afternoon. I don't have to be there by a certain time because it's the curfew. I know other communities where we also work. One of the communities where we want to set up a K1 for people to be able to pay their bills online, not only to buy Bitcoin, but to pay other services. There's a development, like about 200 houses. Over half of those houses have been run by the gang. So the gang would kick the people out and they would just
Take the house.
Take the house to hide stuff or to hide themselves when the police ever came. They would come in big groups to take somebody, but they would just, if you have 100 tiny houses that you can hide in and you can stash your guns and everything, what do you do? And if you have nowhere to go because you have no money and no work, and your only work is probably working a small parcel of land, a small plot of land that's nearby, you cannot move the land with you. So now that has changed.
Crazy. And the first couple of times I came, I talked to a lot of Salvadorians, and they were telling me like the extraction was even at the smallest level. People selling fruit on the streets were paying the gangs, restaurants were paying the gangs, higher office were paying the gangs. Everyone had to pay, even to like the cent.
I mean, I wouldn't say everyone, but in an area like where we are right now, like in the...
We're in the upper center of San Salvador.
Exactly. So this would be probably safe for most people. But as soon as you go off, like a little bit away from the center of the town, or maybe around the police station, then yeah, like if you have a bag of waters and you're selling, because we drink our water out of bags here.
Yeah, I know, it's a plastic bag of water. It's not a plastic bottle, it's a bag of water.
It's cheaper,
Yeah, no.
So if you were selling water bags, you had to pay the gang. If you were selling candy on the bus, because again, you couldn't get a job, you would have to pay the gangs. So it came to the point where, for example, the buses wouldn't run because if the bus driver didn't pay the gang, they would get killed. And we would have months where we had several bus drivers killed. And then the whole, the whole bus route, their whole team would refuse to run until the owner of the buses, which was usually not the driver, until they paid the gang. So they had the power to dictate everything.
And it changed. It fucking changed, crazy. Could you tell us a bit about the history of the colon? Because you were mentioning that you are big coin collectors. you've seen it move. You were talking about like almost a 92% inflation, kind of, probably even more. How was it, that phase of change, and how do you feel today, the Salvadorian do feel between their old money and the dollar that came to cover and the Bitcoin? Maybe go through the history if you can.
Let me see. With the colon, I think, so back in the early 1900s, if I'm not mistaken, the different banks were allowed by the government to print money, and there was a point even when here in El Salvador, the different fincas or the different coffee plantations, they had their own money. So in that plantation, they would have, I don't know, 50 families working the land, and they would pay the families in their own token. So you would call that nowadays a shitcoin, right?
Yeah.
So you would pay the families working your land in your own token, and it had the family seal on it, the family crest, and you could only spend it at the family store. So there was a general store. It was a form of slavery, basically. You can only spend here, and you have to, and I will charge you for sleeping or having a small shack in the plantation. That's the way it used to be. It's from the time of the Spanish colony when the land was divided into, whoever can farm the land or has the resources to farm it. That's the way it used to be. When the central bank decided it was going to be, obviously with the economy developing, it was going to be the only one printing colones. We did experience some inflation, most of the time in Central America, at least Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala. They've been trying to keep it pegged to the US dollar one way or another. So it was always around $8.50 to $9. But the US dollar is also being devaluated. Inflation nominally is 1% to 2% per year. But you know that if you buy property in 2 years, it hasn't increased in value 2 to 4%. That's when you see the real inflation. So we had for a time it was around $2.50 for a colon, then it went up to $5 for a colon, but then during the war, the US began sending a lot of money into the El Salvador government. The war we had here was a civil war, but it was actually just a proxy war for the Cold War, as it was in many places in Latin America, because you had the US government, and this is all documented, it's not, I heard it from some guy on the internet. The US government would send hundreds of thousands of dollars to the El Salvador government, and then you had the USSR through Cuba, Nicaragua, supporting the guerrillas, trying to destabilize the country. So that obviously we ended the war, but then we had a huge debt to the US, like our government did. Eventually it came to the point that they said, we're going to we're going to dollarize the economy, as they said. So it's going to be US dollars, and it's going to be fixed at $8.75. So in theory, by law, you can still go any place and buy in colones, but nobody will take it right now. I mean, it's been 23 years, nobody will take them, but by law, you could force them. Hopefully with the dollar, it's going to be the same, Eventually, somebody's going to bring out an old piece of paper and say, hey, I want to pay for my drink with this. And you're going to say, what the hell is that? So that's, it continues to be devaluated. We had a big hit during COVID.
During COVID? Yeah.
Because during COVID, the US printed how many trillions of dollars? Literally trillions.
Yeah.
And at least, to every family in the States, they sent a stimulus check, right? Which is fine. But we used the US dollar here. We didn't get stimulus checks. We only had an inflation check. Thank you very much. And it's fine, I'm not saying I'm resentful towards the US, but we decided to be, subservient to their monetary policy. I think we could have done worse if our previous governments had the opportunity to print as much money as they wanted. So, but during COVID, it was a huge hit. Prices here went up tremendously because the dollar was devaluated all over the world. And our economy is 1,000 the size of the US. Yeah. The US printed 3 trillion. If we had gotten 3 billion, which was our fair share, we would have paid half of our national budget for the year. I mean, it would have been a huge boost for us. But of course, we only got the inflation check. And it's fine, you know, it was our decision, not our government's decision to use the US dollar. So that's what you get.
You have a chance to move away now.
There is now a chance to use money that is not controlled by the US government nor by the El Salvador government. There's a chance to use money that the people control.
It's really important I think it's really important that the Salvadorian that we teach understand that Bukele doesn't control Bitcoin. Because it is a misunderstood thing that I see here on the ground, that they believe it's like Bukele's money. And it's like, no, even if everything changed, Bitcoin is still going to be here and you will be able to use that currency, not this one, the real one, Bitcoin, regardless. And that is one of the biggest change I find.
There is always resistance to change. The only way to overcome it is education. So that is why that's actually one of our motivations, to create something where you can buy with 5 cents. Because if they tell you, you have to put $1, you have to put a 20, people are going to resist. It's natural. $20 in El Salvador is groceries for a week for a family. Well, before COVID. Now it's for half a week. But still, you know, it's a significant amount of money. But if you tell them it's 5 cents, it's 10 cents or 25 cents, and you can try Bitcoin for the first time, you know, pay somebody electronically, pay for your electric bill using Bitrefill, another company that's doing great work here in El Salvador. You can pay your electric bill in Bitcoin. We have already one of our devices set up in a community where the people buy Bitcoin and then they use Bitrefill to pay for their electric bill. They no longer have to travel to the city. So at the beginning, unfortunately, there was, I believe, not enough education. Now that is changing, but people were just, you know, pushed into the pool without a floating device. Now we have a flotation device that can help people learn just a little bit. Try it. If you don't like it, that's fine. You know, freedom is freedom, right?
Have you seen the opposition against Bitcoin come down through the years? Locally.
So honestly, in El Salvador, the thing is, you already described it. Bitcoin became a political issue. Bitcoin is not Bukele's money. You know, I support some of the policies that the president is doing. I am still human, you know. I do not have his mind, so there are some things that I do not understand why he's doing them, and I can tell you, there are things that I don't like. That's the honest truth. The changes are positive, as I said, but regarding Bitcoin, for some people it became an association. It's B as in Bitcoin, B as in Bukele, which is not the case. You know, I'm a software developer. I see Bitcoin as a technical solution to a very hard problem, the problem of money. If you had asked me before I learned about Bitcoin, is there a way to do an election with electronic voting that's not corruptible, that's not, hackable, I would have said no. But now that I think about it, with the blockchain, with Bitcoin, you could have everyone have their own private key, vote on the blockchain or in some blockchain.
Yeah, in some way.
And then it's a solution. It's a technical solution to a very hard problem that works.
It's actually funny you mentioned that, because we had Peter Todd here for an interview just before. You can check the previous video. And he was mentioning how he helped the Guatemalan government use open timestamp for the election that we're putting literally right now. And then there have been a refusal of the final result because of fraud and corruption and manipulation. And so now, they do have some proof because, Peter helped to set up a system that is kind of trustless. So we'll see how it goes. But as time goes, I do believe more non-corruptible solution will emerge from this open source technology. And then it will be a question of all right, why are you not using the right tools? Is it because you don't want? And so the reason is probably because you do want to have a say in the modification, in the corruption, in the system, or is it by ignorance? And then, we're never going to stop educating people. We're not going to stop. So it won't be by ignorance. It would be by sheer, by choice of try to scam somehow. And yeah.
Our government could have said, we are going to go away from the dollar into colones again, for example. And they could have said, we're going to print our own money. But they decided, no, we're going to use Bitcoin.
That was a crazy move. That was like...
It was a crazy move, but it's a move that, from my point of view, it's working. I know it's not yet for everybody else, but as communities start understanding that they are no longer subject to, oh, I need to give $5 to my child who is on the other side of the city and I have to take the bus. No, I just, sorry for the sound effects.
It's perfect.
But I just, send him a deposit to their Lightning wallet, and then they can buy lunch or they can pay for, so many times I had to do it. I had to pay for some photocopy at school and I didn't have money. Mom, what do I do? Oh, tell this teacher that I'm going to pay her tomorrow. No, you're no longer subject to those restrictions. As people start discovering it, that it's a good technical solution to a hard problem, I think they're going to open up.
That's true. One of the things in El Salvador that blew my mind was I was near El Zonte and suddenly my data stopped and I was like in the middle of nowhere just walking and I was like, if I don't have data, I cannot work, so I need to get data. And I was like, well, to get data, usually I go to a pharmacy and I pay cash because it's anonymous. And then I was like, all right, but I'm in the middle of nowhere, so to get to the first pharmacy or the first person that could reload my my device, whatever company I was using as an operating system, I wanted to take the bus, find the right person, get some cash, and pay them in cash, and then go back to maybe work. I would have lost like an hour or two just to get data. And then it was just like a button saying like, hey, reload using Lightning. How much do you want to pay? It was like 1 giga, 2 gigabytes, 3, 5. And I just pressed like 2, and then it was like Lightning invoice. It paid immediately with like my phone, and then I had data again. And I was just like, all right, I just saved 2 hours, and I've paid 0 in fee to get data anonymously from the player. And I was like, all right, I've been traveling a lot in South Africa, in South America, in Asia. I'm like, this is just solving an enormous problem to everyone. And it's just one use case that is possible if you make it legal tender. And yeah, it's just at some point you realize that so much friction are gonna be raided because of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I can remember growing up, my grandma, she ran the neighborhood store. So people would come and buy, I don't know, a pound of beans, a soda or something like that. And we would have to keep buckets of change. Just because when people came, here's a 10 colones bill. So we had to get all the change, I remember one time somebody paid her, when they were new, a 200 colones bill. So they tell, oh, can you give me this and that, and I'm gonna pay with a 200. So she got all the change ready. Okay, here's the change, where's the 200? So the guy, he never left his car. From the window of his car, gave her a bill. She gave the change to this person. And when she opened up the bill, it was a fake bill. You cannot have fake Bitcoin.
That's true.
So it solves a lot of issues for people. And as people learn, they're going to be, I'm sure they will be very receptive.
Why did Bukele choose Bitcoin?
Why would he choose Bitcoin?
Why did he choose Bitcoin, in your opinion?
In my opinion, one of the reasons had to do with remittances. That's one of the things that the government mentioned a lot during the transition. We have a huge population of people living in the States because of the war, the gangs and everything, the earthquakes too. We had 2 big earthquakes in 2001 that destroyed a lot of houses and a lot of businesses. They send money, they support our economy. 20%, if I'm not mistaken, of our gross internal product is not actually internal. It's remittances. So giving other countries the power to cut that off is a big risk for a country that's trying to do things differently. So having an alternate channel that is uncensorable is important. I am sure they connected it with the surfing culture and the just freedom movement that builds around Bitcoin. they knew what they were doing when they decided to do, a surf city in El Sonte, and they saw the Bitcoin ecosystem already existing there. For years, El Salvador has been, if you look at the issues we have basically no natural harbors, no navigable rivers. We have no big plains where you can, plow a tractor through a field and make enough money for your family to live comfortably. We have a volcanic land that's very hilly, a coast that's battered by the ocean. If you're close-minded, what do you say? Oh, we have issues, we're going to be poor. But if you're open-minded, you can say, hey, there's nothing to break the waves before they get to the shore. So we're a surfing destination. There's a whole bunch of volcanoes everywhere, free energy. The land is hilly. Well, tourism destination, right? So Bitcoin, I think, is a solution that was implemented because it solved issues we had in a very specific way. There was no first Bitcoin country, and even with all the issues we still have, because I'm not saying it's a perfect land with a perfect government, it's not yet, and I don't think it will ever be. As long as we're human, we're going to be making mistakes, right? But now, technology like this can exist and be exported because we have this influx of tech companies coming here because we decided to be Bitcoin country.
Yeah, that's a good point. Always thinking like the decision to feel like, okay, so we're going head to head against the dollar. Let's do it. It's bold to move. We'll see the result in 5 or 10 years. Edgar, we are here at Cuba Plus. You had a challenge with some hardware and money, and they were supposed to hack it. Maybe we'll do a video only on that, and the kids that crack it would try to explain us all the steps. That same kid that cracked it told me he wanted to work for K1.
Awesome, that's great. We're looking forward to recruiting from Cuba Plus.
Yeah, Cuba Plus is it's an online AR courses in El Salvador to teach the next generation of Lightning Dev. Have you talked to those kids? What do you have first-hand feedback, or maybe what's your first impression?
Well, I've been able to talk to them very briefly. Okay. Just this past week, we had a week of doing some social work in one of the schools we work with. But I ran into him on my way here, and he was very excited. I congratulated him. I had only done it on Twitter, and told him I want to have lunch with them, with the team that cracked it, because I want to hear their thought process. The challenge was not very hard, but it was designed to force them to think outside the box.
I know, and they struggled a lot. We gave them some tips.
And that's all right.
But I feel like we come from a long place, so the road is long, but we'll make it.
I know we will, and thank you for making the time and effort and investment of being here and finding these young kids. They're the future of El Salvador, they're the future of Bitcoin, the future of technology, and we really want to see them thrive.
Yeah, I think it will be a massive plus for El Salvador, Lightning, Bitcoin, and just it's hard work. It's really hard work and energy consuming, but it is working. It's a first step, and we can only improve from there to really have something better and stronger, and to have a more decentralized network of talented people being able to build great solutions. And that's how, at the end of the day, you solve crime, you solve problem, you solve poverty. It's through education and one generation taking over another one, and then the third generation will be able to have a better life.
Yeah, hopefully, one day these 20 students will be able to teach 20 students of their own, and then you have over 400 students.
It's exactly what we hope for here. Edgar, maybe you have a last word for our international audience coming from El Salvador, and if not, just tell us where they can find you, where they can find that, and anything you want.
Yeah, definitely. You can find us online in social media as K1 El Salvador. Our website is k1.sv, so feel free to reach out, any questions, any comments. For the international audience, just thank you for thinking about El Salvador, for hearing this conversation. There's great things happening here. I believe personally that El Salvador is the best country in the world.
I believe the same of mine, so you know,
If you don't think so, maybe you should come and just make sure you have the right decision. You know? Take your chances. It's a good time to visit El Salvador. Many interesting things are happening here, so make a visit.
Thank you so much, Edgar. Bye. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. You can also put some comments if you have questions for Edgar, and maybe we'll respond, maybe not. I honestly don't know. We'll see. If not, just put the comment anyway. And I will see you next video. Thank you so much, and bye-bye.